Today, I'm going to be doing an AFC East ranking by each positional group, other than special teams. To start it off, for quarterback, Josh Allen is one. And I think that is pretty clear. He is the reigning MVP, and I believe that he is a top 2 quarterback in the league. And here is where I get controversial already. I think that Drake May is better than Tua. Drake May is a better runner, and I believe that he is a better passer. He just had rookie issues last year, and that was his main constraint, along with not having any real weapons. Unlike Tua, Tua is surrounded by offensive weapons, and that is the only reason that he produces. And I believe that Tua can't stay healthy, and that is another reason why I have Drake May above him. Because Drake May will more than likely play most of the games of the season, unlike Tua, where Tua has a possibility that if he gets one concussion, he could be out for the rest of the season and maybe for the rest of football. And then at the 4, I've got the Jets. I like Justin Fields, but I need to see him do something. I need to see him prove himself as a passer. He went 4-2 last year with the Steelers' starting quarterback, but he was mainly a rusher. Now, if he proves himself as a better passer, then maybe I will have him above some of the other players. But as of right now, he is not the best in the AFC East, and he's more than likely the worst. Moving on to running back, I think that James Cook is definitely the best running back in the AFC East. He rushed for 17 touchdowns last year, and I think that he can at least get 15 touchdowns this year. It's definitely a possibility, and that's why I have him above everybody else, and I think that he proved that he is capable of being the RB1. Then coming into second, it's weird. It's hard. It's hard to rank these guys because, they had a lot of, ups and downs. I think that Breece Hall is definitely better than Devon Achane and anybody on the Patriots, but he also hasn't proved that he can produce at the way he used to produce. Ever since he had that leg injury, he hasn't been quite as good as what he used to be, but I think that he could still get back to what he used to be, and that's why I have him at second. And Devon Achane, I think it's clear that these are the 2 and 3. You can exchange them however you would like, but Devon Achane has never had a complete RB1 load for an entire season. I think he definitely has the potential to be better than Breece Hall, but as of right now, I think that Breece Hall is just a little bit better than Devon Achane. And I like the Patriots running backs. I like them. I just need to see them produce. That is my issue. They haven't really produced quite that well in a while, so I think that if they prove to me that they can be what I believe that they can be, I could have them at second, really. But I don't know if they are. I have to see them produce. I love Trevion Henderson. I'm an Ohio State fan, so I have to love him. And I think he's got real potential, but we'll just have to see. Moving on to offensive line, I believe that the Bills have the best rounded offensive line, although that they don't really have any superstars. They just have good, they play good in the pass protection. They play well in the run. I think they're just the most rounded out of everybody in the AFC East. But, I think that the Patriots, drafting Will Campbell is obviously a great way. You're now protecting that blind side for Drake May, and that's a good way to try and fight for that number 1 position. Their interior is what concerns me the most out of all of them, but I think that they're decently number 2, but they could be fighting for number 1 by the end of the season. Third, I have the Jets. The Jets they've had a bad O-line for the past few years, but they addressed it in the draft. They drafted that Missouri guy, Armand Mimbu, and I think that is the right step that they need to take to try and compete for first or second in the AFC East, and I think that's just the right step to take to try and compete as a football team as well. The Dolphins, they just have a bad offensive line. They don't have any star power. They perform mediocre in the run and bad in the pass. And that's just they just haven't addressed it, and they need to, but I don't think they will anytime soon, at least not until this year's draft or until next year's draft. Going to wide receiver, this one's hard. Obviously, Dolphins have the number one. They've got Tyreek Hill, and then they've got Jalen Waddle, two amazing wide receivers. But, it's kind of weird. I think the Jets are probably better than everybody else in the AFC East because Garrett Wilson, he is definitely top 10, or at least he can play at a top 10 level. And I also really like their depth. I think Allen Lazard is a really underrated wide receiver. He's got good one-on-one capability, and I think he's a decent end zone target. And then here, I have to go the Patriots over the Bills. Now, the Patriots' depth kind of sucks, to be honest. They don't really have amazing 2s or 3s, but they do have a clear-cut wide receiver 1, unlike the Bills. Now, when you have Josh Allen, it doesn't really matter who your wide receivers are. He's going to get the ball to them. But I am not dissing on the Bills wide receivers. I think that they're great wide receivers. I just don't believe that they have a clear one. I love Keon Coleman, and I love, what's his name? But anyways, Khalil Shakir, I love him too. I just don't think that either of them are clear-cut wide receiver ones, and I think that getting Stephon Diggs pushes them slightly above the Bills, ever so slightly. When it comes to tight end, I think it's obvious. The Bills have 2 starting level tight ends, and I really like them. I think they're both top 18 guys. Past that, the rest of just everybody else kind of falls off a cliff, to be honest. The Jets, it's definitely 2 for the Patriots at tight end. They've got 2 guys who are decent in the run block, and they're decent receivers, but they're both 30 going on to 31, and they're just not amazing. But the Jets and the Dolphins, oh my God. Don't get me started on this. Don't get me started. I had to look up who the Jets tight end was, and even then I don't remember his name. I know that he had roughly 500 receiving yards and like 2 or 3 touchdowns. And then the Dolphins. And Jonnu Smith, he is a great tight end. He had a breakout year for them last year, but he is 30 going on 31. So I understand why they traded him. I don't think that he would have produced at the same level that he did in 2024. But now they have nobody, and they traded for Darren Waller. Darren Waller, the rapper. Former tight end. He's been retired for 2 years. Why would you trade for a retired player? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I know that you're desperate for a tight end, but Darren Waller. What in, whatever. Enough with that. Now here, God. I think Christian Gonzalez is a better corner than Sauce. Now, Sauce's rookie year has been his best year, and he's on a slight decline ever since. He's still an amazing corner, but I believe that Christian Gonzalez is better, and I also think that the Patriots' depth is better than the Jets. Christian Gonzalez, his rookie year, he was amazing, but he's been on an increase ever since his rookie, unlike Sauce, who's been on the decrease. And with one decreasing and one increasing, that's what has me putting Christian Gonzalez over Sauce Gardner, along with the Patriots got decent depth at corner, really. Unlike the Jets, they've got all right depth, but, there's a couple holes there's a couple holes in all of them. And then I have to go Bills because the Dolphins are just crazy. I understand why they traded Jalen Ramsey, but Now they have nobody at corner, so it's going to be a lot harder. And I think these two, it's pretty clear cut that the Dolphins are the worst corners, and that the Bills are better than the Dolphins, but not better than the Jets nor the Patriots. When it comes to safeties, this one, I think that Minkah Fitzpatrick carries that Dolphins duo over everybody else, but it's a lot closer than than you would think. The Patriots, they've got two really good safeties, and I think that by the end of the season, there's definitely a possibility that the Patriots have a better safety group than the Dolphins. But as of right now, I think that Minkah, he just carries that safety group just a little bit, just half a step, if that, above what the Patriots are. And then at 3, I have the Jets, mainly because I don't think that Damar Hamlin should be getting main guy reps. I think that his name carries a lot of value. What he did was amazing, and it's crazy that it happened, and I'm glad that he made a full recovery, but I just don't think that he should be a number 1 guy. Saying that, though, I don't think that he's terrible. I think that he could be a good rotation guy, but him being your number 1 safety drags it down a little bit. And I actually kind of like the Jet safeties just a little bit. Just a little bit. I think that the Bills have a pretty good D-line, or they had an all right D-line. They had a good regular season D-line, but once you get deep in the playoffs, they didn't really have that D-line. But then they signed Joey Bosa, and I think that Joey Bosa, he's not the star that he once was, but he's still an amazing, well, not amazing, but he's still good, and he can still produce in the pass, and he can still produce in the run. And Gregory Rousseau, I think he's more than likely a top 12, top 10 guy. He gets overlooked pretty often, and I think, he's good. So that's why I have the Bills at 1. And then past that, it's kind of hard. Let me take a water break real quick. Back from my water break. The Jets, I think they're the number 2 in the AFC East. Quinnen Williams is a dog, but their edges are kind of iffy, and that's what makes me hesitate to put them at 2. And I think Quinnen Williams is the only reason that I have them at 2. The Patriots, they've got better edges, but their interior D-line is not as good as the Jets, and that's my issue. Their edges are just slightly better, but they're not top-notch of the line like Quinyon Williams. I think he's probably a top 8 interior defensive lineman, while the Patriots don't really have anybody who's that good. And then, then there's the Dolphins. But anyways, I think that the Bills, they more than likely have the best linebacker group, but it's kind of weird, and I'll get to it later. They're really good. I love Matt Milano. I think he's really underrated. He's top 10 in my opinion. And if you guys disagree, I'd like to know what you guys would rank him at, because I think he flies under the radar. So if you don't think he's top 10, where do you guys rank him? You can let me know. You can let me know where you guys rank everybody. I've got the Bills at 1 for a reason. And then, next, I have to go, man, it's hard. It's kind of like interchangeable, the Jets and the Patriots. They've got decent linebackers, but it's like you can flip a coin really on how well that they perform. And, that's that. Here is the weird part. The Dolphins, they've got 2 amazing linebackers that could debatably put them at 1 above the Bills. But those 2 linebackers had season-ending injuries, and they're still questionable to this day. And that is what has me at the bottom. Now, if they were the level that they used to be, Bradley Chubb and blanking on the other guy's name, I would have them at 2. I would have them above these bare minimum. Bare minimum, they would be at 2, but I think that they would more than likely be 1. But, you can't tear your ACL and then mess up a ligament in your knee and then just expect to come back as 100%. Now, if those guys do come back as 100% and I eat my words, I'll own it. I'll own up to it. But, just those big injuries, those are my concerns, and that's why I have them at 4, but they could definitely be 1, say those guys come back. Let me know how well you guys think I did with the ranking and what you guys would change, what you guys would keep the same, and what I should do next. What division do you guys think I should do next? Peace out.